Hello everyone, so I don't know about you all, but the season finale to me seemed more like a show finale than anything else, with its pacing as slow as a frozen walker. But I digest. The most interesting clip to come out of the show though was the very last 5 seconds. The voice on the radio. So who is this speaking and what is the significance? Stay glued or frozen in place if you will, to find out. Though nothing is confirmed, this video may have spoilers for next season. As much as they changed and tried to distance themselves from the comics, AMC's version has included every story arc in the graphic novels. The start of Rick's journey, Hershel's farm, the prison, Woodbury, Alexandria, All Out War, and now the Whisperers. Furthermore, AMC has also adapted in some way just about every major plot point from the comics, such as someone getting their leg cut off and eaten by the cannibals, Negan bashing someone's head in, or more recent. The next story arc in the comics after the Whisperers War is over is called The New World Order, and will introduce to the story the largest communities the survivors have yet seen, who call themselves the Commonwealth. We're talking about thousands and thousands living in a pre-zombie atmosphere. This group gets little teasers during the Whisperers War in the comics when someone makes contact with Eugene on the radio. He gets to know the person behind the mic who later reveals himself as Stephanie. After some time of talking, Rick eventually finds out what Eugene has been doing and initially gets mad but does agree the community should meet up. An envoy is sent to a meeting spot in Ohio. Okay, now what's cool about this journey is we meet some new characters such as Juanita Sanchez, also known as the Princess of Pittsburgh, and Mercer, a zombie-killing badass. We also get some closure to other stories like Negan and Beta. So whether AMC is going to introduce the Commonwealth into the show as it's presented in the comics, or create a whole new group that will take the place of Commonwealth, we can say for sure that a new group is definitely coming down the pike. Sorry, too soon? This leaves us with the question of who. Who is on the radio trying to make contact? Well, if AMC wanted to remain true to the comics, this would be a new character not yet introduced named Stephanie, or possibly a different name. She's sort of a scout for the Commonwealth. I would like to point out that Rosita in the comics is one of Alpha's victims, and she was a couple with Eugene. This left Eugene very lonely, and he forms a bond with Stephanie, later falling for each other. Since Rosita is alive and with Gabriel in the show, Eugene is also by himself and lonely in their version as well. So they may have Eugene form a bond also with this new person over the radio. The second guess for who this voice belongs to would be Jadis. After she had Rick saved by the mysterious helicopter, her story seemed to have ended along with Rick's and she hasn't been heard from since. So it could be that possibly the helicopters were from Commonwealth, and after living there for several years and being a scout for even longer, she becomes the official scout for the group and is reaching out to new communities? This explanation could be Commonwealth abducted people to build their community, but after Rick arrived, he convinced them this is wrong and they changed their tactic to reaching out via radio and finding new communities to voluntarily join the Commonwealth. This brings us to our next yet unlikely possibility. Rick Grimes is the one on the radio. Now we know Rick was taken, but we aren't sure where. If you're curious about those possibilities, make sure to check out my video on that, and while you're at it, subscribe if you haven't already. Let's take a walk down a snowy, walker-covered trail. Rick wakes up in the ER and is all patched up. He's surrounded what appears to be a pre-zombie paradise. Shops open on every corner, citizens walking around carrying on conversations. Realizing he survived the bridge blast, he's desperate to get back to Michonne and his kids. However, he has no idea where he's at. Remember, he can't just Google map Alexandria and hop on an Uber to go home. On horseback, it would take someone who knew where they were going several days. Assuming they're not just going to give him a horse and let him walk out of there, Rick realizes the odds of finding his way back to Alexandria on foot is near impossible. The Commonwealth is in desperate need of leaders, so they convince him to stay, with Rick's goal of working his way up to a position where he can get the intel he needs to go back home one day. He learns of the radio, and after spending several weeks, if not years, reaching out in the hopes of making contact with his long-lost friends, until one day he picks just the right frequency at just the right time and makes contacts with Alexandria. This could also lead to a tie-in to the upcoming Walking Dead movies, showing how Rick survived and working his way up to eventually finding the radio and making contact, bringing full circle to Rick's story. Hell, they can even make Rick rise and become the leader of the Commonwealth, and that's why he can't leave, but he's still desperate to find his friends. This would also open the door for Danny Gurira to leave the show after her long stretch of playing Michonne. The only way she would leave her friends and the safety of Alexandria is if she found out Rick was alive. It's a far-fetched idea, but still a possibility. The next possibility for the mysterious radio voice would be that of our long-lost friend Georgie. Now, for those who are asking themselves, who the fuck is Georgie? Allow me to take you to the past days of Forgotten Yore, known as Season 8. Georgie's group shows up and offers to trade information for food with Maggie. Feeling bad for the hilltop and the toll the war has taken on it, Georgie leaves Maggie with schematics for windmills, and schematics for water mills, and schematics for other devices to help them build up their community. We also know from earlier in this season that sometime during the time skip, Maggie left to go be with Georgie.
Maggie send another letter?
Yeah, twins dropped it off this morning.
Having the wealth of information at her disposal, it could be that Georgie eventually makes her way to Commonwealth, and seeing how large it is, decides to stay and becomes a key member. This brings us to our last possibility, Miss Maggie Green Rhee herself. This possibility would follow along with the scenario above, but with Maggie in the driver's seat. Maggie meets up with Georgie to join her group, and during the time jump, they find the Commonwealth, and after spending some time there, she gets a bit homesick and uses the radio to reach out to her old friends. Maybe she fills Stephanie's role and uses her experience as a leader to find new communities to join the Commonwealth, and just happens to come across her old friends. This could be AMC's way of opening the door for Maggie to return to the show in the second half of the 10th season. If Lauren Cohan decides to come back, AMC could have her meet the Alexandria envoy and escort them back to the Commonwealth. If she decides not to return, she can just remain the voice behind the mic. So regardless of who is behind the mic and making contact with Eugene, we know this is just AMC's foreshadowing of the next story arc. We already got some hints at the Commonwealth with a sign pointing to Toledo, which is in Ohio, which is where the Commonwealth just happens to be. But don't expect to see them anytime soon though, as there's still plenty of story left with the Whisperers. Enough to fill up the first half of Season 10, possibly the entire 16 episodes. Well, that's all I have for now. If you like this video, make sure to tune that mouse click to the thumbs up frequency. And if you're feeling generous, consider donating to my Patreon page. I now have one up. Your support will help me pump out more of these Walking Dead videos along with the others I make. Until next time, keep on walking. Dun 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 dun.